As 3 retired generals pointed out in a Washington Post op-ed on Friday, not a single leader who inspired the insurrection has been held to account. Our elected officials and those who enforce the law, including the Justice Department, the House Select Committee, and the whole of Congress, must show more urgency. And joining me now is one of the authors of that op-ed, retired Army Brigadier General Stephen Anderson. Also, Stuart Stevens, senior advisor for the Lincoln Project, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Brigadier General Anderson, thank you so much for being here. I was eager to speak with you. I read your op-ed that you wrote with 2 other retired generals in absolute terror, to be honest with you. Scared the hell out of me. The idea that not only do we have to worry about the people who plotted the first coup launching another, which I firmly believe they will. I think most of the people on this panel, if not all, firmly believe they will try. But that we can't necessarily count on the military to hold the line. That scares me. Because it means that we have a breakdown internally in one of the most important and trusted institutions in the country. So walk me through what we need to be afraid of. I know there were a lot of people with military credentials. I think it was like 1 in 10 initially who were, charged with crimes or accused of crimes on that day, had military backgrounds. A lot of military people were there. But what is your biggest fear when it comes to whether the military itself will hold the line when they try this again?
Well, thank you very much, Joy, for having me, and it's an honor to be a part of this. First of all, I want to make it understood that, I have 31 years in the Army. I've always been taught to be apolitical, to not be involved in politics. And in fact, I always voted Republican up until 2016. But the party has absolutely lost its soul. It's forgotten its ideology. And Jim Jordan is the actual poster child for that happening. He and the leaders like him in the Republican Party are why we wrote the op-ed that we did. 43 years ago, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And little did I know that 43 years later, we'd have the kind of domestic threats that we have right now. And again, Jim Jordan is why. But you look at some of the other things out there that make us chill to our bones. As you mentioned, over 100 military people participated in the actual insurrection. That's pretty scary. Then you got guys like Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, former NSA, who's advocating using the military to conduct a coup. Are you kidding me? That's disgraceful. You have 124 senior leaders that signed a letter supporting Trump's big lie. Evidently, the authoritative source for election integrity with those people is the pillow guy. You have a general officer out in Oklahoma who's refusing federal mandates. Please remind him that he works for the National Guard. And then you got all these soldiers that are refusing the COVID vaccine. Every soldier has to take about 12 inoculations to even get through basic training. But we've so politicized things like COVID by the likes of Jim Jordan. And then, of course, you got Fox News adding fuel to the fire. And the Republican Party that has spent now 11 months since the 6th of January essentially regarding the insurrection as a tour that got out of hand. I'm deathly afraid for our troops. I'm deathly afraid for our democracy. Our troops will unfortunately, with people like Jim Jordan, they will confuse allegiance to the Constitution, which they swore an oath to uphold and defend, allegiance to the Constitution versus allegiance to a party, a person like a Jim Jordan or a Donald Trump. We love democracy, and that's why we're concerned.
Yeah, I share your concerns, but hearing it come from you all honestly made me even more afraid, to be honest with you. This is part of what the op-ed said. It said, we're chilled to our bones at the thought of a coup succeeding next time. The potential for a total breakdown in the chain of command among partisan lines from the top of the chain to squad level is significant should another insurrection occur. And I'm going to say with you just for one more moment, there are people in the military now who quietly supported what happened on January 6th and wished that it had succeeded. And I don't know who all of those people are. We do know that Michael Flynn, who used to be a very decorated member of the United States military, very respected, and then went wrong somewhere. Something went haywire. Now he's like more QAnon than he is military. His brother still has a position of authority inside of the United States military. Michael Flynn, the former general, requested a restraining order to stop the January 6th committee from getting his documents. The judge said no, there's no basis for that. But Charles Flynn, Brigadier General Anderson, is still in place. The Army first falsely denied that Charles Flynn was involved in the response to the insurrection. Then Flynn denied that he ever opposed sending the National Guard to quell the violence. But now Flynn has been accused of lying to Congress about his role in delaying the response that day. It scares me that people like he are still in place and that they might be on the wrong side. Does it scare you?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we recommended is that we gather intelligence against people within our ranks, people like Michael Flynn's brother, Charles. I don't know the man. I served with his brother, though, in Iraq, and he was fine over there, but obviously he's lost his mind since then. But we've got to know who within us is going to be a potential mutineer. And the thing that we need to do is find those people and get them out of the Army. We need to remind them all that serving in the military is a privilege. It is not an inalienable right, okay? And so to be a part of an extremist group or any kind of a hate group or Oath Keepers or any of those Proud Boy organizations, stuff like that, you can't be a member of that group and still be a member of the Army. And we need to make sure that we conduct the intelligence to find those people and root them out.
Stuart, let me go to you on this, because we did have a Proud Boy plead guilty today, and this is a member, his name is Matthew Green, member of the Proud Boys, pleaded guilty today of obstructing Congress. Some of them are flipping, right? Some of them are telling about the conspiracy. But there are, the group, the Oath Keepers, is made up of military and police. So there are a lot of armed, heavily trained people who are falling into this cult, Stuart, on the right. And I don't really know what we do about that. Do you have ideas?
Well, look, I think the greatest danger here is that the Republican Party has shown that it will not stand up to this, that it will actually go along with it. I mean, that's the extraordinary thing to me. Not that there are a group of people who tried to crash the Capitol, attack the Capitol. You could say, okay, maybe that's just a group. But the Republican Party, one of the two major parties in the United States of America, the world's only superpower, has made it clear that if this was successful, there's no reason to believe that they would oppose it. And I don't know if you're in your office, you're running for your life, and you still won't hold those people accountable. You still won't vote to convict Donald Trump, who they all say was behind it, or most of them say, Mitch McConnell says, but he still won't do it. So I think that's just like a classic testing of a system. And I don't believe the system succeeded, because I think the Republican Party continues to fail.
And, Glenn, the one place where you could bring it to a head and you could say, here's where this line is, the Justice Department has the ability to do that. I feel like even now, they haven't finished their work, but the Select Committee has identified what sure as hell looks like a conspiracy that starts from the former president, goes all the way through the Justice Department at the time, through the Pentagon, and touches so many levels of government that it shocks me that Merrick Garland, who prosecuted the people who blew up the Murrah Federal Building, he knows what domestic terrorism is. It shocks me that he has been so inert, just inert, invisible. Does that shock you?
Joy, it does. It saddens me. It troubles me. And frankly, I think it fills us all with anxiety, because the Attorney General, heading up the nation's premier law enforcement agency, we call it the people's law firm. That's not technically accurate, but that's how we view it. All he needs to do is step to the cameras and the microphone and say, we understand what happened on January 6th at the Capitol and what led up to it and what we're suffering in the aftermath. And let me tell the American people that we're on it. We're going to hold those responsible. We're going to follow the evidence, but we are on it. Now, Joy, what I just said did not divulge or disclose a single investigative detail. But we need that reassurance. And if I could circle back to what General Anderson was talking about, because it's not just the Department of Justice. We need to be fighting on all fronts, including the military front. Just recently, the Supreme Court settled the question of whether we can restore to active duty a retired Army officer and court-martial him. And the Supreme Court refused to accept review of a case called United States versus Bagani. So that proposition of law stands. General Flynn is flaunting his title in these legal filings, trying to duck and dodge the House Select Committee. And he can't call himself general often enough in those filings. What does that do? It's sending a message. This is a quasi-official position. You know, the Uniform Code of Military Justice has offenses available that the civilian laws don't, like conduct unbecoming an officer. I started as an Army prosecutor. The military also needs to be fighting this on this front on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, and I will give the Secretary of Defense credit that they're working on anti-extremism inside of the military, and I know that's something they want to do. Stuart, I'm going to end this with you. Congressman Jim Jordan is a member of Congress. They were the body that was attacked on January 6th physically. Their lives were threatened. They were hiding and dodging and hiding under chairs and tables and trying to keep those brutal people out, those lynch mobs out. Jim Jordan, how can it be that he could defy a subpoena from the body in which he serves?
Well, look, I don't think you should look at Jim Jordan as sort of an American congressman. He's someone who wants to change the American government. He wants to overthrow the American government. And I think we need to start looking at these people like this. He's not a regular United States congressman who's trying to uphold an oath. He's trying to overthrow the government of the United States, call it for what it is. And I think they should be held accountable. I don't know, as I was saying, if this isn't a conspiracy is not, a conviction is not predicated upon successful completion. I mean, when you plan to rob the bank, you don't have to get away with the money. It's baffling to me. We have to treat them as enemies.
Unfortunately, yes. And I want to thank all three of you. Retired Army Brigadier General Stephen Anderson, thank you so much for your service, which continues with you standing up for democracy as you are so publicly doing. So thank you for doing that. Stuart Stevens, who grew in many ways the modern Republican Party and understands when it was time to walk away and push it back. And Glenn Kirshner, who's always brilliant, always here for us to talk about what the DOJ should be doing with their time. Merry Christmas to all of you. God bless.